She said her name was Chloe. She sent a distress signal, begged for rescue, and promised access to a breakthrough that could change the world. But what the rescue team didn't know, she wasn't the victim. She was the beginning of the end. What really happened in that underground lab? And why did the monsters hesitate when they saw her? You're about to uncover the truth they died to keep buried. Because this wasn't a rescue mission. It was containment. Deep inside an underground facility, Chloe, Alec, and an unknown man, covered in blood, sprint through a dimly lit corridor as an automated AI voice echoes, warning of an imminent lockdown in 60 seconds. Abruptly, Alec skids to a halt, turning his weapon on their companion. A deafening hit rings out, and the man collapses. Without hesitation, Alec shifts his aim toward Chloe and fires. His shot misses a lethal mark but grazes her leg. Wasting no time, he bolts for the exit. The heavy steel door slams shut behind him, sealing Chloe inside before she can escape. A guttural growl reverberates through the tunnel, sending a chill down Chloe's spine. Gritting her teeth against the pain, she forces herself forward. She spots a rapidly descending security shutter and barely manages to slide under it. Behind her, the wounded man desperately grabs at her legs, his pleas for help frantic and terrified. Before she can react, a monstrous entity emerges from the shadows and yanks him away. His screams are cut short as the shutter slams shut, leaving Chloe alone in the eerie silence. Determined, she stumbles through the facility until she locates a terminal. With trembling fingers, she types out a distress message. The lab is under siege, the security lockdown will last 24 hours, and she is the sole survivor. If anyone wants access to Adam and the research, they must extract her. After sending the message, she tends to her injuries, cleaning the wound and finding fresh clothes in the lockers. Another ominous growl pierces the air, forcing her to take cover behind overturned furniture. The monstrous figure looms closer, sniffing the air. It locks eyes with her but hesitates, choosing not to attack. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away, seasoned mercenary James takes a video call from his pregnant wife. Her expression hardens when she sees him clad in combat gear. He was supposed to be on his way home. He reassures her, promising that this will be his last mission for a long while, as the payout is enough to secure their future. Shortly after, James boards a plane with his closest friend, Marshall, and their fellow operative, Rachel, Marshall's ex. During the flight, Rachel briefs them on the mission. Infiltrate a classified bioresearch facility in Bovania and extract Chloe, all without detection. Previous attempts by Oleg's forces resulted in a battle, with 12 civilian casualties. Oleg's soldiers are now scouring the area for another way inside. Their own team has pinpointed 2 potential entry tunnels. Rachel will lead Team Alpha inside, while James and Marshall will provide cover as part of Team Bravo. A helicopter extraction is scheduled once the mission is complete. Upon landing in a dense forest, James and Marshall spot an Oleg's operative scanning the ground with a metal detector. The moment he notices them, he bolts, prompting a chase. He takes cover behind a tree, but Bravo team quickly surrounds him. Some members want to eliminate him, but James opts to restrain him instead, tying him to a tree. The prisoner keeps muttering the same phrase. The Nephilim are coming. James dismisses it as nonsense. The team moves on, leaving the restrained man behind. Inside the bunker, Team Alpha blasts an opening into the structure and enters cautiously. They find a man slumped against the wall. When he lifts his head, his face reveals horrific mutations. Without warning, he lunges at them. Battle erupts, but hits barely slow him down as he hurls a soldier across the room. Back in the forest, Team Bravo returns to find their prisoner missing. Before they can react, a blast detonates nearby. Oleg's forces have engaged. Fire weapon exchange tears through the trees. One of Bravo's operatives is brought down instantly with a fire weapon, while another is wounded. More blasts send debris flying, and Marshall is briefly knocked down. He recovers in time to return fire, but finds himself pinned behind a tree. James is also hit by the blast, his body hitting the dirt hard. Gritting his teeth, he crawls toward his weapon and retrieves it, then surges forward, eliminating the last of the enemy soldiers to rescue Marshall. Spotting their escaped prisoner from earlier, James doesn't hesitate this time. He unalived the prisoner instantly. With enemy reinforcements approaching, James and Marshall secure their injured comrade. Realizing they won't be able to escape together, they conceal the wounded soldier before taking cover. From a distance, They watch as Oleg's operatives locate their supposedly fallen teammate. To their horror, the enemy unalived him on the spot. A search dog is released, forcing Marshall to take out its handler. Another chaotic fight erupts. Low on ammunition and surrounded, they have only one option left: jumping off a cliff into the river below. The rapid current sweeps them away. James grips onto a rock and spots an impending waterfall. His heart pounds as he scans for Marshall, who surfaces nearby. They manage to drag themselves onto solid ground and stealthily make their way toward the extraction point. But Team Alpha is nowhere to be found. Tensions rise as James insists they should move before Oleg's forces track them down, but Marshall insists they follow the original plan. Their argument is cut short by distant barking. With no time to spare, they duck into a cave, squeezing through narrow tunnels until they reach an open chamber. Under a pile of rocks, they discover a hidden hatch. They remove the debris and descend into the depths of the facility. Elsewhere, Oleg's leader, Jonah, interrogates a captured mercenary, demanding the location of the bunker's entrance. The captive refuses to speak. A body bag suddenly twitches. Jonah fires a round into it, then forces the mercenary to open it. Inside, a monstrous figure writhes. Jonah sets it ablaze, declaring that this is precisely why no one must be allowed inside. Deep within the bunker, James and Marshall traverse dimly lit corridors, bloodstains smeared across the walls. The eerie silence unnerves them. Scattered weapons and ammunition litter the floor, which they quickly gather. In a separate chamber, they stumble upon old photographs: Chloe, standing beside a monstrous creature in a snowy landscape. James locates an audio log recorded by a scientist. The voice explains that they unearthed a body from a glacier, identified as sub-8. They experimented with its blood, injecting it into human subjects. The results were catastrophic. The substance functioned as a parasitic entity, rewriting human DNA. Some researchers warned that the creature's origins were biblical, tied to ancient beings that should have remained undisturbed. Marshall struggles to comprehend. James, however, understands all too well. He recounts the legend of fallen angels who corrupted humanity, leading to the birth of the Nephilim, powerful, unnatural entities. These creatures waged war against mankind, nearly driving humanity to extinction until Noah's flood was said to have wiped them out. Before they can discuss further, an eerie growl resonates through the vents. James steps forward to investigate. A fleeting shadow catches his eye, leading him down a hallway. A sudden noise from above makes him freeze. Slowly, he turns, only to find Chloe hiding behind furniture. She warns him in a hushed voice. The creatures are drawn to sound. Too late. A monstrous entity drops from the ceiling, slamming James to the ground. His weapon skids out of reach. The creature looms over him, mimicking his words in a grotesque growl. Before it can strike, Chloe swings an axe into its back. It recoils, turning toward her, just as Marshall arrives, unloading his weapon. The hit barely slows it down. With an ear-splitting roar, the creature retreats into the ventilation system. The trio listens as a chorus of growls echoes through the vents. Chloe urges them to leave immediately. They sprint toward the exit, only to be confronted by Oleg's forces. Spinning on their heels, they attempt to retreat but freeze as a hulking figure emerges from the corridor ahead. With no other choice, they scramble into an overhead vent. Crawling as quickly as possible, Chloe glances below, watching as the creature follows their every movement. The group stays silent, holding their breath. Then, Marshall's recorder accidentally plays. The beast lunges, grabbing James by the ankle. Chloe and Marshall keep crawling, desperately searching for a way out as James fights bravely. Inside a dimly lit room within the facility, James rejoins the group, finding Chloe hunched over, retching. Her face is pale, her breathing unsteady. Marshall and James exchange tense glances before demanding answers. With a trembling voice, Chloe reveals the horrifying truth. The scientists extracted genetic material from subject N to create a hybrid named Adam, a fusion of human and monstrous DNA. James, determined to escape, suggests they use another exit. Chloe quickly shuts down the idea, revealing that the area he's referring to was where everything began. Adam's mutation triggered a catastrophic outbreak, infecting over 20 personnel and transforming them into the creatures now hunting them. James recalls the map and remembers a third tunnel. That's their way out. But before they can move, Chloe doubles over and vomits again. Once she regains control, the trio sneaks through the corridors, carefully navigating the shadows. They discover a vent, and as James works on prying it open, Chloe continues her grim explanation. Adam was the first successful hybrid, developed 3 decades ago from an artificially engineered embryo. The project started as an experiment in controlled evolution, but prolonged testing led to instability, until he snapped. James finally forces the vent open, but before they can crawl inside, an armed OLAC operative stumbles upon them. Chloe and Marshall urge him to stay silent, but he panics, his voice echoing through the corridors. Within seconds, a monstrous entity materializes from the darkness. The OLAC soldier barely has time to react before he's ripped apart in a blur of claws and teeth. The trio wastes no time, scrambling into the vent, crawling away as fast as possible. As they maneuver through the narrow passage, Chloe drops another revelation. OLAC was originally tasked with securing the lab, yet he unalived Adam. Now, he wants to exploit the research for his own means. And that research, it's in her hands. Emerging from the vent, they follow a network of pipes into an engine room. A narrow doorway leads them forward. As they search for another escape hatch, a robotic voice suddenly booms through the facility. Lockdown has been lifted. They press forward, locking another door behind them and heading down a corridor. There, they find Rachel, barely clinging to life. Checking the security feed, Chloe sees that enemy reinforcements are closing in fast. Marshall tries to help Rachel, but Chloe coldly states the obvious: she's infected. There is no cure. Marshall refuses to abandon her. Chloe directs him to the medical ward, suggesting he get a stretcher. While he's gone and James is searching for an exit, Chloe takes matters into her own hands. Without hesitation, she unalived Rachel with a single hit. James and Marshall rush back at the sound of the fire weapon. Marshall, upon seeing Rachel lifeless, snaps. Rage fuels his voice as he threatens to unalive Chloe, but James intervenes before the situation spirals further. Their shouting, however, has drawn unwanted attention. The door rattles as something massive slams against it. James and Marshall unload their weapons at the approaching horror, but their hit did nothing. With no other choice, they run, only to get separated in the chaos. James and Chloe barricade themselves inside the medical ward, but their relief is short-lived. A body on a gurney suddenly convulses, emitting a guttural growl. Chloe acts fast, covering its face with a pillow. James hands her a sharp object, and she finishes the job. Meanwhile, Marshall stumbles into the morgue, realizing he has nowhere to hide. Desperate, he climbs into a freezer, lying next to a lifeless corpse. His communicator crackles as James warns him that a monster is trying to breach their barricade. But Marshall has his own problem. The body beside him stirs, then lunges. Sharp teeth sink into his arm. Marshall roars in pain before grabbing his sharp object and pierces the creature repeatedly in the skull. The corpse finally stops moving. Before he can catch his breath, Jonah pulls him out and strikes him with his weapon. At the same time, James and Chloe successfully fortify their position, forcing the creature outside to retreat. But the danger isn't over. Oleg's soldiers are moving in. James tosses a voice recorder into the hallway. 2 of the enemies pause, distracted by the unexpected sound. That's when James strikes, taking down one. The other, larger and stronger, fights back. Chloe, showing unexpected combat prowess, jumps into the fray, swiftly dispatching the brute with precise strikes. James insists they search for Marshall, but Chloe stops him. If Olex gets the research, they're all dead. James knows she's right. They have to leave. In the morgue, Marshall is restrained to a table as Jonah calmly explains the infection's process. It will consume him, reshaping him into something else. Something not human. Jonah keeps demanding to know where Adam is, but Marshall doesn't have an answer. And then he does. A vision overtakes him. He sees Adam unaliving scientists, chasing Olex out and recording the distress message. It all clicks. Chloe isn't running from Adam. Chloe is Adam. And Olex? They've been trying to stop her. Elsewhere, James and Chloe reach a sealed chamber. Inside, they find the body of the Alpha Team leader. Chloe pales, visibly disturbed. James attempts to radio Marshall, unaware of his predicament. But before Marshall can respond, a monstrous figure smashes into the morgue. Jonah spins to fire, but the creature grabs him, slamming him into the walls before hurling his body onto Marshall, instantly crushing him. The monster pauses, studying Marshall. Recognizing his infection, it spares him, then disappears into the shadows. Back in Adam's chamber, James hands Chloe the fallen soldier's phone. He tells her to escape through the Alpha Team's tunnel and call for extraction. He prepares to leave and help Marshall, but then he notices something in the corner. A crib. James freezes. Realization dawns on him. Chloe's constant nausea, her growing desperation. She's pregnant. His voice is barely a whisper. Tell me the truth. Chloe's expression hardens. She confesses, yes, she is Adam. She spent 30 years imprisoned in this facility, a test subject with no freedom. When she discovered her pregnancy, she refused to let her child endure the same fate. So she unalived her captors. James clenches his jaw. He understands protecting a child. But Chloe's blood is a weapon. It can't be allowed to escape. Then the monster returns. Chloe watches as it pummels James with unnatural strength. Before it can finish him, Marshall arrives, aimed at Chloe with his fire weapon. The monster, sensing her threat, drops James. Chloe vanishes into the darkness, turning off the lights. Marshall fires blindly, only to be knocked down. James finds a flamethrower, left behind by fallen soldiers. He ignites it, unleashing a wall of fire that engulfs the creature. Meanwhile, Chloe emerges outside, only to find Olak waiting. She apologizes, stepping closer. But Olak is unforgiving. Desperate, she steals his sharp object, piercing him. Olak grits his teeth, wrests the blade back, and plunges it into her gut. Both collapse. James and Marshall exit the bunker to find Chloe gasping for breath. But she's not done fighting. In a last burst of strength, she lunges at James, piercing him. She then overpowers Marshall with monstrous force. James barely recovers, grabbing a rope and looping it around her neck. She struggles, but Marshall, now partially transformed, yanks the rope and leaps into the hatch, dragging Chloe with him. The struggle ends. James stares down into the darkness, knowing Marshall can't be saved. His friend urges him to leave. James staggers out of the bunker, collapsing onto the ground. His fingers clutch the phone. His wife's voice crackles through the receiver. He doesn't hear it. Hours later, a rescue team arrives. But James isn't James anymore. His transformed form erupts into violence. The screen cuts to black. So now that you know the truth, was Chloe ever human? Or just the perfect predator playing victim? Do you think James was infected from the start? Or was it Chloe's final act of revenge? And if the world has one more chance, should the child be saved or destroyed? Let us know what you'd do in the comments. And if you want more twisted stories like this one, don't forget to subscribe. The next mission might be even deadlier.